Yo, let's get into this America's tier list, man. Red Bull home ground just finished. G2 swept the floor with a sub against NRG, so I think it'll be interesting to talk about, go over all of the transfers and such that happened over the course of the offseason. And like, dude, there's actually so many transfers going that I can't even like keep track. Let me explain my tier list a little bit, because this is kind of like the way I was thinking. This is for like the whole entire year, how I predict each team is going to do within this year. Just going from top to bottom. International favorites, I think the teams in this tier will probably make a majority of the Masters tournaments. They're definitely going to make champions. They'll have deep runs in tournaments. That's what I consider to be international favorites. If you're like consistently making the playoffs at international events, competing for like top 4, top 3, top 2, making finals, winning, the teams that I believe will like go that far will be at international favorites. International contenders, I think, are teams that will make a majority of international events. Maybe they'll make like top 8s, but within the region, within Americas, I think that they'll, you know, consistently make playoffs, consistently and easily make it to international events, just because they're a step above everyone else. Domestic contenders, I reckon domestic contenders are the teams that they'll, you know, make playoffs consistently in Americas. It is 8 out of 12 teams make the playoffs, but I believe like they're probably a top 6 team. They'll consistently make playoffs. Maybe they'll make some Masters, make some champions, like save up enough points, but I don't believe that they have any like real chance of competing. Average developing, I believe they're kind of like the bottom of the playoff teams, or they just have like a bunch of new players come in. We'll get into some of the teams later as like why I think that is the case, or like the rosters don't have like a solidified core that have gelled together. And RBs are just teams that I think are going to be ass. They probably will get bodied, probably won't make playoffs, probably won't make it international. Let's just start there. I'm going to toss Furia in the RBs tier. So we're losing to EG, not really close. The players that we have on our roster, you know, I think he's been playing for a long time. Thieves is like a good player, but I don't think that you have enough like firepower. I don't think you have enough like strategy. I don't think their calling's particularly great. So let's just call it what it is. They're probably going to be ass. We don't need to like overthink it too much. Lost to C9, lost to Sen, they lost to 2-game Esports, they lost to an Ascension team, and like if you look at the names on this team, not particularly great. If I was following the transfers correctly, I do believe that Furia may have gotten EU from NRG this offseason. I do think that he is a solid player. I don't think he changes the culture of your team to the point where you're now a winning franchise in Valorant. Currently they only have Heat and Basic signed. Basic, you know, I don't think that he's like overwhelmingly good. So Furia will probably just be ass. Yeah, Jesus. This is a belt to ass type shit. They haven't won a league game since January. Ew. They haven't won a league game in Americas since the first game of kickoffs. That is disgusting. Like, fire everyone. All right, so Furia can like very well go in ass. I don't really see like how they'll do super well. International favorites, we could go from bottom to top. I think G2 will be considered international favorites simply based on the fact that they will make every international. Beat NRG 3-0 with a sub, with Baby Bay, not even just like a normal sub. Dominant for the last probably 3 years in Valorant, right? Again, don't really need to go into this one. Will they be able to go over the hump and win an international event though? I know what the floor is and I know what the ceiling is, and right now I feel like the ceiling is kind of where they are, right? Like, I don't think Jajimo will ever be on the form that he was in 2023 champs. I think Trent has kind of like leveled out in terms of like his mechanical ability. Maybe he has another level to hit that I haven't seen, but he's been like probably like 8 or 9 out of 10 mechanically for the longest time now. I think it really depends on if they can find like a early adaptation on the meta, I think, or depending on who their 5th player is that they bring into the roster to provide something different. If I believe if they bring in someone like on Jonah P's level, and no disrespect to Jonah P, love that guy, played him in DM once, you knew what you were getting with Jonah P, right? I do think that you need to bring in another like game changer that kind of adds X factor to your team, because currently G2 are just like blatantly obvious, like probably the best team in Americas. Not enough X factor to like go on runs to win finals. That's kind of like my analysis on G2, and I like G2 a lot. 100 Thieves. I personally believe that 100 Thieves will be in the domestic contenders tier, I think they'll be a consensus top 4 to 5 team in Americas at least. I don't know if you guys have seen the video. Sean Garris, like in this video, kind of talks about like a lot of the things that they're building the team around, like the identity. I'm not too high on Asuna. I think that really his peak was in like 2021, 2022. I still think he has like the flex player like in him, but to me he's like become less and less of an X factor mechanically over the years. Bang is quite good. I rate Bang highly. Again, mechanically, probably one of the best controller players in North America, if not the world. Cryo, again, I think Cryo mechanically good, but you know, not like a big X factor, not like Prime Yacer stuff that we're talking about, right? And especially with Sean Garris bringing the TSM core that did so well in Ascension up to 100 Thieves, I do think they will have like a competitive edge over the teams in terms of like mentality, the amount of fluidness in game. I don't think they'll be stiff or stale, which is like great in a team environment, right? You never want to be losing repetitively. You always want to have like new looks and new ideas and like fresh minds coming in through your team. So I do think 100 Thieves have that edge for them, but I don't see them competing at a very, very high level in terms of like winning international tournaments. I think this team definitely still has ways to go for sure. I guess we could go in like to average slash developing. We can talk about Envy because I think Envy are an interesting team. I'd probably put them like in the middle between average and developing. I'll be nice and put them in developing tier. If you watch their Ascension run, I think Kane and Ion were so essential. I mean, that's 2/5 of the team, right? That's 40% of like what they're able to accomplish. But I do believe that they were so important to that team. Mechanically, they're very, very good. And you're losing those 2 players, right? I think Inspired Baby J, I don't rate him that highly. He's a good player. He's not a great one. I think Poppin, Eggster, they're good players. I don't know if they're great professionals. Again, we'll have to see. They did win Ascension, so have to give them credit for that. But when you go against the likes of G2 or NRG, you'll have a lot more of a difficult time. I think they did play at Red Bull home ground. Oh no, they played in the Sen City Classic. If you didn't see this, but Inspire was kind of complaining about how they weren't able to like quickly find replacements for Kane and for Ion, and so when you bring 2 new players in when the season starts in about a month and a half, it does take a team a lot of time to gel together, right? Even if you're doing like 2-a-day practices 5-6 days a week, it's really tough for especially a new IGL to like completely gel in with the team, especially with their style. I feel like they might have a difficult time gelling together very early on, right? I think when the season starts, there will be other teams with cores that they've maintained that have better quality, probably better strategy, better teamwork, that will find success early on. I do think that they could be good like in the second half of the season if they don't like mentally collapse. They'll probably be like the 9th or 10th best team in the league. I think MIBR are like a super interesting team, right? They now have Osbos, who I consider to be the best player in the world. They have Zekin, which I consider to be a top 10 player in the world. And they have Verno, which I think is like a very talented up-and-coming player in the scene. They'll probably play Valorant for as long as he wants, right? So I think there you do have a really solid core of players. I do wonder how Zekin will align into that team, right? Because Verno is like a scan initiator player mainly. Zekin, I like him on the scans, I like him on the duelist, but you'll see Osbos on duelist. So I think if the meta is like double duelist, I think that MIBR will have like a leg up just because they have 2 of the top 5 duelist players in the world, in my opinion. If the meta is more so like double controller, double initiator, I do think that limits Zekin a little bit. Not that he can't do those roles, but I don't feel like fits like a glove, right? I do think that there are other teams, if the meta leans like double controller, that they'll have a leg up. A team like G2, where I believe Trent to be like a better Viper player than Zekin, will have like a bigger advantage over MIBR, more so than if the meta is double duelist. I'd take Osbos and Zekin as a double duelist combo more so than like Leaf and Jajam, right? So that's kind of like where my head is at, especially with the utility changes. They could be more double duelist. MIBR is probably like in between the international favorites and contenders. They could very easily move up 2 favorites though, because that roster is just like insanely talented. EG, I think, are going to be an Arby's here actually. Shout out to Potter. I don't know like what type of witchcraft they pulled off to win in 2023, but that was 2 years ago, and I'm not caught up on all their roster changes. Like, I think Nature is quite average. I think Superman is quite average. I don't even know how to say this name. Dezine, Okeanos, Calm, Superman, Bow. Yeah, this team is ass, guys. this team is RB's tier. And I know EG has no fans, so that's not going to insult anyone. You don't really have like the star power, right? You lose Demon 1, you lose Jajamo, you lose Boostio, you lose Calm, you lose Ethan, right? So all your talent is gone who hit their peak at the right time. This has none of that. I can't really see Superman like becoming a star player. I can't see really like any of the players that I saw on that list become a star player. Calm doesn't really have like star player attributes. He does have a clutchness to him. If that's even like the confirmed roster move, they might actually just be worse than Furia. I'm not gonna lie. Right now, these two teams not looking so great. We can go Sen. I'm not too sold on Sen currently because of their roster moves and the shift in IGLing from Gen.G to what's his name? Caillou? I think it's Caillou at Red Bull home ground. Gen.G 10 and 15 against G2, 7 and 13 against T1, 11 and 17, and be in the grand finals. Gen.G 39, 36 and 20. Yeah, kind of what I'm seeing from the numbers currently from Gen.G is I don't strongly believe that he is on a mechanical level like Sen have analyzed that he is. Like I don't think he's putting up enough numbers in the same way that like a Valen does as like a fragging like IGL. I don't know. I never really see it, right? Not bad. 18-10. Yeah, in terms of like raw numbers output, I don't really see it. The shift from changing Gen.G from like a pure IGL to a mid-rounder, bring in a new IGL. It's not like a 100 Thieves situation where you bring in a coach and IGL pair. From someone who has IGL and has worked with like coaching before, it is very hard to come in with a set of ideas of what you learned from like your past experiences and to mesh with your coach who has their like experience and whatnot. So I don't think that they'll be bad. I do think that there is talent on this team, but it could take time for, you know, the ideas to start coming together. Caillou to have success as the IGL consistently, for Gen.G to begin to up his like frag numbers, his frag output. Narrate also on the duelist. We can watch, I guess, his most recent. We can kind of speed through his most recent game on Raze. Like, I don't know if I rate Narrate that highly either. We can kind of speed run through this, kind of like see what Narrate's doing. I think Redux is quite good though, and I think Narrate does have like potential for sure. I'm just not so sold on the idea of switching him to duelist. It'll be interesting to see what type of IGL that Caillou is. If he's more like restrictive or like lets his duelist players more like loose. Yeah, this all looks pretty organized. Yeah, so like from a position right here, Narrate has like no playmaking ability. He's gonna be first out and he's just gonna die, right? He's essentially like a boom bot. So he has a classic. He's just on like boom bot duty. He kind of just has like no way to get impact in this round, right? Just jumping out to clear sight. So right there, Narrate can't really do much on the duelist, right? He's like kind of boxed into like this game plan, which is understandable, right? It's just like a style. But for someone who is like newly starting to play duelist and is like trying to build, because I think it is super important for your duelist players who naturally have like the mindset of wanting to, you know, be the playmaker, be aggressive, stepping forward into space, really like not really caring about like that or like likelihood, but more so like having faith in your own ability. Being a part of this system, having every kill designed for you, can oftentimes actually be detriment to like your momentum that you're trying to build throughout the season, right? Angle hold heavy. He's just gonna like wait for his team, be first out. Maybe in the post plants he gets more active for sure here. Like, I could just be making shit up, but just from like the little bit I've seen, I feel like Redux does have like a fluidity to him more so than Narrate in terms of like the way he moves, right? Very understandable, since when I think of Narrate, I think of him more as like an initiator player, and generally initiator players are very like sequential. You're usually throwing your utility in this sequence and then going to hold this spot, kind of right there, right? Narrate, not really like playmaking ability, just holds the angle he needs to hold, hits his shot. That can be good, but every team needs a little bit of X factor, right? Like, teams need a Jajamo. Teams need someone to like go ahead and take the space and really like push for it, right? Probably if you look through like the best teams in Valorant history, they do have an element of like aggressiveness to them that I'm not so sure that Narrate has. Again, Narrate kind of just holding mid here. It's really up to the IGL, right? Like what they believe is the best way to play the game, or like what fits into Narrate's like skill set. I think it's quite good from him, but again, like it feels very passive, right? I do believe that Narrate is someone with like a lot of mechanical ability and quality, maybe just not so much on this role yet. Very methodical. He's just gonna jiggle heaven, dual CT. Sometimes you just want your like Like Oxy has an element of like let loose, do crazy shit, and I think like just does it, it gives your team momentum. I think that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about and why I don't trust Sen. Right here, you need to run it down for sure. Is it the correct play? No. But like his mindset is like, okay, wait for this flash. Okay, so he waits for the blind, and then he doesn't even like push leaf, tags, tucks. Some people might disagree with me, but again, I'm just gonna say it for one last time and then move off this subject. I do think that duelist players, they need that X factor. The best duelists in the world, they need to have a little bit of throw in them in order to be like successful players, you know, like Kobe. You need to be like Kobe, right? Did Kobe take the best shot every time? Hell no. But did he make like the crazy to hard hit ones? Hell yeah, he did. Also, playing against someone who you know is calculated, play slow, wait for utility, that doesn't like strike fear in your hearts, right? That's just like, okay, this team is good, but you know, we're not scared of them. We can beat them. We just need to like game plan better. But when you hear people talk about like Os Boss, you hear people talk about Kong Kong, or like why people love OG 10s, was because they had that X factor to them that like put pressure on you. You know, you feel like you're forced to make mistakes. You feel like you need to hit the first shot or they're gonna run you down. The best duelist players in the world have that element. And again, I'm just not so sure that Redux has. So I think like they will be within that 4 to 5 range, but I think it will take time or like a reshuffle in order to like push Sentinels up the ladder. I don't even know what's happening with Leviatan, so we can clear them out the way. I personally do not know any of these people, so I'm gonna be nice and put them in average. I do think King is quite good, but I'm not so aware of the rest of these guys. I'm not gonna speak too much on it, just gonna put them in like average tier. Probably will perform better than Furia still. We can knock out all the LATAM teams. Loud, Birdie, Picada, Kauzin. Okay, I've seen enough. I think that Loud are probably better than Envy. I think that Crew are a step above Loud. I mean, you look at some of the vets on Crew, right? I think Kesnet is like not an elite player, but he's been doing this shit a long time, man. That experience that you have, you don't lose that, right? Maybe not finding much success in terms of trophies, but you know, you have champions experience. In stage 1, actually, they're winning playoff games, lose to EG and lowers, lost to this MIBR roster. I kind of look at them as like middle of the pack team. Maybe they're right here. I don't really see them winning or like making it far in many events, but they're probably the gatekeepers of the higher level. Like Kesnet, Menzino, they've been doing it a super long time. Interesting that they don't have the OGs back. I might need to drop them. Probably below Loud. This seems accurate to me. Let's double check the C9 roster. The C9 roster I will actually have a decent read on because the roster is filled out. Kind of did Mitch dirty with the Zelsis situation. Internationally, he's like decent, but he's been doing it a long time. He has a lot of experience. I think Oxy is one of the best duelist players out of America. Has like a lot of this X factor. He's young. I do think he has like potential to like refine his abilities, become like a consistent fragger, impactful player. When you think of like impactful duelist players, right? I tend to think of like Demon Ones, or like the C-Neds or the Os bosses, right? But having the ability to strike fear into your opponent does matter. It does affect the way teams game plan against you. It does affect the way that, you know, people swing against you. It does affect how teams call around you. Having the reputation of being like a killer is super duper important, and Oxy, man, he's so good. I do think he can hit just that next level. I do think that he has like a lot of raw mechanical ability. I think Oxy like does have that in him. This roster is probably just the worst one out of the bunch behind NRG. The reason I rank NRG over 100 Thieves, Sen, and C9 is not only because they're fresh off a champs win. I do believe that NRG do have an element of consistency that I know when I'm making like this type of list, right? I quite like Mata. I think that he, as a duelist player, does have like the explosiveness that you look for, like a Jajamo, but he does have like great space taking ability. The way he entries is a lot more impactful than like other duelist players. He's kind of from like, if you think about it in like a tree of duelist players, there's like the Jet tree and there's like the Raze tree. The Jet tree is like the killers, like Yace, Prime Yacer, like people who just ruin your game, and like the in your face duelist like Jajamo. I feel like Mata is definitely like built to be in that Raze category of like being in your face, is super impactful. I think he's really good at that. I think the Waylay suits him a lot, the Raze suits him a lot. His like jet numbers, it's actually quite decent, but it is worse than his other duelists. I quite like Mata. He'll probably play for a long time. Scuba might be the best Sentinel player in Americas. I don't necessarily think that Brock is on like the level of player that, like, for example, Ethan is. Like, I think Ethan is like a certified, when you look at him, he like oozes world class. This NRG team reminds me a lot of the EG team. Keiko is quite a decent player. I remember watching him a few times like internationally, and he didn't stick out like a sore thumb that I thought like he was bad. This has been my tier list. I'll probably do another update once the season has started and we've seen like a few different games. If I had to guess, this is probably like a pretty accurate prediction. How do I end this shit, bro? I've been going on for way too long. How do I end this shit? If you enjoyed the video, if you like hearing me yapping, leave a like, comment, subscribe, link twitch.tv/24kuno down in the description. I'm streaming a lot more these days, so definitely tune in where I'll be doing more analytical content, gameplay stuff on stream. Peace.